right, today we're going to tackle one of the biggest stories ever told. We're talking about the end of the world, but specifically, the timeline laid out in ancient scriptural prophecies. We're going to walk through it step by step to see how the narrative unfolds. So, let's get right into it. So, what's the big question here? It's really this. What do these ancient prophecies actually say about humanity's final chapter? For our journey today, it doesn't matter if you're a believer or a skeptic. We're just going to look at the story itself, using the scriptures as our guide, to see what the narrative actually is. Okay, so here's our roadmap. We've broken this down into 6 parts. We'll start with the signs of the end, then move into the Great Tribulation, deception and division, the climactic return, a period of judgment, and the millennium, and we'll wrap it all up with a new eternal beginning. All right, first up, the signs of the end. Think of this as the overture, the events that happen before the main action really kicks off. So the texts talk about a lot of unsettling things happening in the world. You've got wars and rumors of wars, nations fighting each other, famines, sickness, earthquakes, major global instability. But here's the key. The scriptures specifically say these things aren't the end itself. They're just the beginning of sorrows, like warning signs on the horizon. And it's not just about what's happening on the outside, with all those disasters. The prophecies also point to a huge shift happening on the inside, within society itself. They describe a time when people become incredibly self-absorbed, lovers of themselves, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, basically a massive breakdown in character. This kind of social climate, according to the narrative, sets the stage for everything that's about to happen next.
So, with all that as a backdrop, where do things go from here? Well, this initial period of sorrows is said to escalate into something way more intense. A time of worldwide crisis they call the Great Tribulation.
And when they say great, they aren't kidding. The source material uses some really intense language here. It's described as a time of trouble so bad there's never been anything like it in the history of the world, and there never will be again. I mean, that's a pretty heavy statement.
So to paint a picture of just how severe this period is, the book of Revelation describes a series of what it calls plagues or divine judgments. The very first one is described as this foul and loathsome sore that breaks out on a specific group of people, those who've aligned themselves with this emerging world power.
And things just get more intense from there. The plagues keep coming. For instance, a later one is described as turning all the planet's fresh water, we're talking rivers and springs, into blood. Can you even imagine?
The real point here is the cumulative effect of all this. It's not just one disaster. The scriptures paint this picture of a world under so much pressure, so much physical and psychological stress, that it says people's hearts will literally be failing them from fear, just overwhelmed by the terror of it all.
Now, right in the middle of all this physical chaos, the story shifts gears to a different kind of conflict, one that's more spiritual. This whole period isn't just about surviving disasters. It's framed as a massive test of loyalty, where all the turmoil creates the perfect storm for deception on a global scale.
Yeah, the texts are really clear about this. They warn that one of the biggest dangers of this time will be incredibly powerful, even supernatural deception. We're talking about influential leaders showing up, performing what look like incredible signs and wonders, all with one goal: to mislead, well, basically everyone. And right at the heart of this deception and this test of loyalty is this concept you've probably heard of, the mark of the beast. According to Revelation, it's some kind of identifier on the hand or forehead that's connected to this ruling power. And here's the kicker. You need it to do anything in the economy. No mark, you can't buy or sell. It's a tool for absolute control.
So what this does is it forces everyone into a corner. It creates this fundamental choice, this line in the sand. As you can see here, the paths are clear. You either worship this new system and take the mark, or you hold on to your faith in God. According to the story, there's just no middle ground.
So just when things are at their absolute worst, this global crisis is peaking, humanity is completely divided, the narrative takes its most dramatic turn yet. The whole period of tribulation is brought to a screeching halt by what the story calls its ultimate climax, a divine intervention. The book of Revelation paints this scene where the very last plague is poured out, and then a massive voice comes from the temple in heaven and declares 3 simple but powerful words that just end the whole era. It is done.
And this moment signals the second coming. Now, the scriptures are super clear about this. This is not some secret, hidden event that only a few people see. It's described as this massive, singular event in the sky that every single person on Earth will see at the exact same time. A truly global spectacle.
And then a very specific sequence of supernatural events unfolds. First, the text says the Lord descends with a shout. Then, those who are believers and have died are resurrected. They rise first. And finally, believers who are still alive are described as being caught up right into the clouds to join them.
Okay, so what happens after this unbelievably dramatic return? Well, that kicks off the next phase of the story, the resolution. This covers a period of judgment and a 1,000-year era that's called the millennium.
And the scriptures lay out pretty clearly what happens to the main groups involved. You have the saints, who are given thrones and a role in judgment. You have those who opposed God, who are left slain across the earth. And then there's the source of all the deception, the devil, who is bound and locked away in a bottomless pit for a full 1,000 years.
But the story isn't quite over. There's this one final chapter to this 1,000-year period. At the very end of it, Satan is let go for a short time. He rallies the nations for one last rebellion, and it's defeated, swiftly and for good this time. And that final, decisive defeat is what paves the way for the grand finale of this entire epic story, the complete destruction of the old, broken world and the creation of a brand new, perfect existence.
And this is really the ultimate promise that the whole narrative has been building towards. It's this vision of a new heaven and a new earth, a place where God himself wipes away every tear, where there's no more death, no more sadness, no more crying, no more pain. All the former things have passed away, leaving just this final, everlasting peace.
And that brings our chronicle to a close. So it leaves us with this big question, right? Is this an ancient blueprint for what's to come, or is it a timeless, powerful story about crisis, about choice, and about ultimate renewal? Whatever you believe, there's no denying its narrative has shaped our world for centuries. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey.